Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2020 Commitments Webinar. We are very excited to have you all on this call. I'm Sri Kosheri, a project manager at CSforALL. Joe, if you could move to the next slide, please. Next one. Thank you. We have with us today some of the members from our CSforALL team. Leanne, who will be joining shortly, our Executive Director, Cami, Director for Programs and Partnerships, Ruth, our Chief Evangelist, Joe, who is our Administrative Assistant, and finally Nadia, our Communications Manager. Also joining us today is a regional partner for Summit, Mecca, who is the Executive Director of Code Crew Memphis. And finally, for our Commitments Highlight Series, we have with us our guest speakers, Steve Roberts from Expanded Schools, Christina Gardner-McCune from AI for K-12, and Jeremy Woodward from VHS Learning. Next slide, please. So very quickly, our agenda for today. We'll begin with the CSforALL updates. Following that, we'll go through the 2020 commitments, the what, why, and the process for this year. After that, Mecca from Code Crew will talk about a regional partnership in Memphis and its significance in making commitments. And then we will also have our guest speakers take us through their work and their commitment stories. Finally, we'll have a Q&A followed by wrap-up. Next slide. So before we dive in, a few general norms for the call. Please check your personal screen to make sure that it reflects your name and organization. This is just to identify each other in the chat. Mute yourself when you're not speaking. And then there'll be a short Q&A after each speaker's presentation. So either unmute yourself to ask your question or drop them in the chat. All questions in the chat will be answered during the Q&A, or we will follow up after the call. Finally, during a follow-up, we will also send you the video recording, chat, and all the resources shared during the call. Next slide. And with that, I invite Cami to take us through the CSforALL updates.
Hi, everyone. I apologize in advance. We are all faced with this work from home life, and unfortunately, you may hear a little bit of background noise because there's a little bit of chaos happening in the house right now. Some add a leak, and so workmen decided to show up just as I'm starting my webinar to fix it. So. Here we go. But I wanted to provide a quick update on Summit. I know that we have started promoting Summit, highlighting that it's happening in Memphis in October. We're optimistically moving forward and making provisions in the event that Memphis does open back up. And we're looking at the trends, trying to see what that looks like, how we can make that happen. But we also have a backup plan in case it does not happen. So ultimately, our decision is that if we don't show up in Memphis, and if we're unable to show up in Memphis in person in October, we would do some online events, socializing commitments, and then when we're all able to convene in person, because that's really the beauty and joy of the summit, getting everyone together, learning about the work that each other is doing, sharing best practices, making those great connections. I think we would do that sometime in 2021 if we're not able to do it in October. But for now, the plan is that we're going to go. We're going to be in Memphis in October, optimistically, fingers crossed. You can always visit our website, CSforALL.org, to look at our COVID response. And we are going to keep the community updated as we get more information and as things start moving along and cities start opening up. So we should have a concrete determination, hopefully by sometime in July. Hopefully that background noise isn't too bad right now. Additionally, for those of you who've never attended a summit, I just wanted to provide like a highlight or overview on what it looks like. It's usually a 2 to 3 day event. We open it up with the amazing commitments and the amazing work that the community does around commitment making to impact change for youth in CS education. So we have commitments from anyone from kindergarten, bringing CS to kindergartners, to school districts, to organizations, content providers, providing some sort of opportunity to share their content, committing to a specific demographic, age range, or group. Shri, hopefully, and thank you, Nadia, for sharing the commitments website. And you can find out more about the summit. Visit our Vimeo channel, or visit summit.csforall.org, where there's a lot of information there. And you can always reach out to Shri or I. I would like to say more, but the noise is starting to amplify, so I will take it back to Shri. You're muted, Shri.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Cami. Next, we have Ruth to talk about the commitments for this year.
Okay, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so some of you have already made commitments and have experience with this, but many of you may not have, or have not used commitments to their full potential. And so I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about what commitments are and how they work. So the sort of genesis of this is actually that when I was in the White House in 2016, we had the CSforALL, the Computer Science for All Summit at the White House, and we invited people from the community throughout the course of that year to share commitments to action. And this actually dates back to like the Clinton Global Initiative and other efforts where we've used this forcing function of having a deadline to get people to come to the table to do more faster. So what makes the commitment process useful is that you can use this to go to your partners and say, like, we have an opportunity to announce a commitment as part of a national event, and we would like you to be with us on this commitment, and how can we do something that is newsworthy, that is new, specific, and measurable. Now, new does not mean that your commitment has to be completely new work and doesn't need to be outside of the work that you have previously done, but it should be not business as usual. It needs to be something that is newsworthy. So can you go to the next slide? So what CS4All, the way that CS4All is using commitments, and we've done this since 2017, is it's a way to help our members have a deadline and sort of a flag in the ground to work towards, to get partners and others to come to the table. It's a way to bring new partners to the table. It's also a way to measure, because there's so many different efforts happening across the nation, and this is an opportunity for us to know more about what's happening and share things across different regions. So just a couple of examples of commitments that I've really enjoyed over the years. So last year, some of you might have gone to the session that Cartoon Network and Wonder Workshop did together. That commitment of them coming together to use the Cartoon Network branding, which is very, very popular with elementary school age children, especially boys of color, to leverage that branding and the Wonder Workshop robotics platform to greatly expand engagement. And that has been really powerful. That commitment came out of Wonder Workshop and Cartoon Network meeting at the CS4All Summit in Detroit, and then making the decision to do a bigger partnership. Cami mentioned previously the KinderCare commitment. KinderCare has 1,400 daycares. The fact that they made a public commitment announcing that they were going to add computational thinking to their program not only means we got them to do something really big in computer science that's going to serve well over 200,000 children and their families, but also that other daycares will go, oh, if we want to be competitive in the daycare business, we've got to do computer science now. So this is a way of not only driving change within an organization, but an entire sector, and it can be really powerful. It's also a way to bring partners to the table who you would never have imagined, and I love unlikely partners. And one of my favorite commitments we had at the White House was a project called Project Code Nodes, which was a partnership between the land-grant university in Kentucky and the Partnership of African American Churches. And they came together to bring coding clubs for girls of color into 23 Black churches of the Nazarene. So that does all kinds of great things. And instead of the church just saying, sure, you can use our space, now the church is fully engaged in making sure that the girls in their community are getting access to knowledge that's going to help them, and that the parents and the community are all in it with them. So lots of ways that you can start to bring partners that maybe don't know that computer science is something they should be doing to the table to be part of this. So we have this national platform to help you announce your effort, helping you connect with partners from the community. So should you need, I really need a partner in a certain, certain technology or a distribution channel, contact us. We can help you connect with those. And we highlight you around the year about what you're doing. And if we can go to the next slide, we have developed a data visualization that is interactive. It's on our website. You can go there and you can look at commitments in different states from different years. And we're continuing to build out this data visualization to help have an ongoing, sort of map of what's happening across the nation. It's also really useful to just go look at commitments other people have made to understand like what might be a fit for your organization. And then before I turn it over to Shri, I just want to reiterate, it is not going to make the national news that an organization is going to expand their computer science program. But when we all come together and say 250 organizations today made commitments that are going to impact 25 million kids and 15,000 school districts, that makes the news. So all of us coming together creates a media moment around computer science education that enables us to raise issues that are important. It enables us to kind of set the national agenda for this. So that's why we do this all together and at one time. So Shri, take it away. Tell them how to do it.
Thank you, Ruth. So yeah, moving to how do you make a commitment? Next slide, please. Well, the steps are simple. You go to a summit website where you can see the link to our application, and then you submit it with us by end of July. Well, the perk to submitting by our early bird deadline, which is end of June, is that for one, you will hear back from us sooner after the review. You'll have more time to promote your commitments through our social media platforms. And additionally, we also give out early bird discount tickets to Summit as well. So we have tried to keep our application comprehensive so that we have all the data points necessary to measure your impact and the collective impact across the years, and consequently capture it through our data visualization. One particular field or question in the application, that is the commitment statement. This is the statement that we would publish in the fact sheet, and this would be released during Summit. So this will be a public facing statement. As seen in this example here, we try to make sure that this is a short statement and it captures your work and all the important information related to your commitment. So to help you build the statement, we also have a tool, the commitment wizard. You can access this in your application page. Next slide, please. So as seen in this image here, as you click on this tool, it'll take you to this page. You answer a few short questions like organization name, your partnering organization, the estimated duration, the primary benefit group, etc. And there you go. Next slide. The wizard will build the commitment statement for you. All you need to do is copy the statement and paste it in your application form. But I must highlight that this is not the entire application. This is just one field in the application form, the statement. You still need to fill out a larger form to submit it with us. Next slide. Moving on to the timeline for this process. Since the commitments announcement on April 30, the application is open for everyone. You have until the end of July to submit yours. Starting from July to end of August, we will be reviewing your applications. At this point, your commitment could be in one of these two stages. First is finalized commitments. So upon review, if we find your submission good to go, we have all the information required, we will move it to the fact sheet. Next are the pending commitments. In this case, after review, if we find that we need more data or even like a slight change in language, we will reach out to you individually and work with you till we get it finalized for our publish. Either ways, you'll get an email by end of August on whether your commitment is finalized and ready for submit. Also, as a rule, we try to include all submissions except in rare cases where the commitment maker doesn't respond to our follow-up emails in time, and consequently, we do not have all the data to publish it. So September, the reason why we push for submissions by end of July this year is that we would have enough time to build a fact sheet and update the data visualization before submit. So finally, in October, we showcase your commitments at Summit, or if unfortunately it doesn't happen, we will definitely have a virtual event to highlight your work. Next slide. So the final piece, what support does CS4All provide for you in this process? To begin with, we have the informational webinars. There is one happening next week on local commitments with our regional partners Code Crew. And then in midweek of July, we have another webinar on making a commitment around accessibility. So in Summit 2018, we did the Accessibility Pledge Initiative. So few of the pledge makers would be highlighting their stories during this webinar, and some of our advisory board members would also be featured in this call. So if you're interested, just feel free to sign up. We'll be sending out an email soon. The commitments wizard and sample statement, these are all tools for you to help with the application process. And then we do office hours on request. So these are one-on-one calls you can do with the CS4All staff. All you need to do is just email to summit@csforall.org. And then additionally, we also do technical assistance with past commitment makers. In case if you feel like you want to connect with one of the speakers that you met during these webinars, or if you heard about a commitment maker, feel free to reach out to us. We can connect you with them so that you can collaborate in the future, or at least like ask more questions about their story. And then we also have a Slack channel dedicated to commitment makers where all our community can stay connected. We will share this with you in the follow-up email. And then continuous engagement. So this year, the commitment doesn't end with Summit. It is a continuous process. Your work, in fact, begins after Summit. We understand that, and we'll be there throughout the year to support you. And at the same time, we'll be providing a national platform to highlight your stories through Medium post or through these webinars, which would continue to happen throughout the year. And with that, I'll hand it over to Mika from Code Crew to talk about our Summit regional partnership.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And hopefully everyone can hear me. My name is Meka Igwekwe. I'm Executive Director at Code Crew. And I'd like to share just a few bullets before we move on to the meat of the day. And for those who are not familiar with Code Crew, we are a nonprofit based in Memphis that teaches kids and adults actually to write software. And I say it that way to people who are not familiar with computer science education. We're really teaching kids and adults to think computationally. We have a very strong focus on underrepresented groups, especially. So in Memphis, our largest demographics are the ones who are most underrepresented in computer science. And so we see it as important for the future of Memphis and really the future of our region, which is very demographically similar to the city. We see it as important that those groups are increasingly represented in these fields, as well as get access to the foundational educational elements of what computational thinking provides. And so that actually gets to the importance of why the summit, why the summit being in Memphis. And for us, it is recognizing or increasing awareness in Memphis and in the region that the need for computer science education and computational thinking is foundational and increasingly foundational. We need to raise awareness in this part of the country, just because it's been lacking, to say the least, both in terms of attention to it as well as access to the technology in the first place, be it in schools as well as in homes. But additionally, we believe there are a lot of positive and interesting things happening also here in the region. And Code Crew, what we like to think, is one of those things. And so we also want to raise awareness of the positive things that are happening. And we see the summit as a great opportunity to address awareness on both those fronts. But in addition to the fact that, you know, the summit is important coming to Memphis, you know, it is, you know, it's not just awareness, but it's actually action that we want to drive. And that's why we're so excited about the commitments model. And in Memphis and the greater region, the commitments model is a way to drive action. It is so critically important here because our largest demographics are so underrepresented. And so, but we think also that because we've got so much attention on commitments and action on driving that here where it's so critically needed, we think it's actually a gift to the country, if you will, because we all recognize that the lack of diversity, especially in computer science and computational thinking and access to computer science education, that lack of diversity is not limited to Memphis, not limited to our region. It's a problem nationally. And because it's so critical to our future as a region here, we think that is the summit and commitments, the whole narrative are an opportunity for us to demonstrate to the country successful models in that regard. And so we fundamentally see education as a civil rights issue of our generation. And as I said before, computer science education is increasingly foundational to education, period. And so that's partly why I was inspired to choose these two pictures. One is the one on the left is a young man that's in our programs who is part of our events, because we're trying to change the narrative and make coding and computer science as popular as sports and entertainment are. And then on the right, you know, again, we're inspired by the fact that this is a bedrock for civil rights, and today computer science education is just increasingly, access to that especially, is increasingly foundational. So for all those reasons, the summit coming to Memphis and producing commitments and driving action, we're just tremendously excited for this opportunity to engage, to further grow the landscape of what I call the gospel of computer science education. And definitely excited for all of you and the commitments that you'll be making for computer science education and the enthusiasm you'll be sharing by encouraging others to do so. So I'll stop preaching this gospel right now and give it back to Sri. Thank you.
Thank you, Mecca. And with that, let's move to our guest speakers for the day. Again, if you have any questions, please hold them till end of the presentation or drop them in the chat for the Q&A. Which will happen at the end of session. Okay, we'll begin with Steve Roberts from Expanded Schools.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to the CSforALL team for letting us kind of share a little bit of our commitment story here, and you know, always excited to be a part of CSforALL. But my name is Steve Roberts. I'm the STEM manager with Expanded Schools. And Joe, we can go to the next slide here, and we can skip over this one as well. But if you're not familiar with us, Expanded Schools, we're in New York City, and we're an intermediary agency that is dedicated to really closing the learning gap by increasing access to enriched education experiences. And that learning gap is something that's kind of self-described as the area between when our students leave the school day and when they leave the after-school time. And so we kind of operate really in that space right between the end of the school day and the end of the after-school time, just trying to really push through educational opportunities for everyone. But it gives us a unique opportunity to bring together some partners so we can really kind of incubate some people in after school, which is what we'll talk about today. And we can go to the next one, Joe. So our 2020 commitment, we said that we wanted to provide computer science education to CUNY students and provide organizational support to community-based organizations by the winter of 2020 to benefit at least 250 New York City school students. All right, and so I'd love to tell you a little bit about who's involved in this project and how we carried this through. And so Joe, you can go to the next one. So we have three main partners who we work with for this project, which we call Expanded Pathways in Computer Science. And so we partner directly with LaGuardia Community College that gives us our access to our institution of higher education. And then we were able to blend together, we were fortunate enough to get public funding for this program. And so we work with the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development, and they work to fund after school, over 1,000 after school programs throughout New York City. And then we're also to blend in a little bit of some private funding through the Carol and Milton Petrie Foundation, which we were very, very happy for. All right, and Joe, you can go to the next one here. So what this program is and what we're trying to do with this program and how we're able to meet our commitment goals and our objectives for our funders, you know, really at the core, we're trying to strengthen and grow the pipeline of individuals prepared to teach in New York City public schools by offering them the core competencies and competencies that are needed in order to perform computational thinking activities, perform computing, and as well as computer science with students. And so our students are kind of the indirect piece of this because we are focused on working with educators. However, what we have noticed is that throughout New York City, specifically in after school, we have a lack of qualified educators working specifically after school, but also, you know, we're really trying to boost the amount of people who are ready to go into New York City public schools and then teach their content area as well as computer science. And you know, another goal of this project is try to really retain qualified educators. We have a high burnout rate of educators in New York City public schools. We also have a high burnout rate of educators in after school in New York City. And so by offering some really intense and robust training in a specific content area, we believe that we'll be able to retain those educators and give them something else to get excited about and then to engage their students in. And then the really interesting part of our project and kind of an overarching goal is that we want to see educators incubated in after school. After school is a beautiful place where you can kind of work on your teaching philosophy, work on your efficacy. And so having teachers who are going into New York City public schools and then who have also worked in after school, they're able to kind of blend those two formal and informal experiences and be, we believe, a more well-rounded educator. And so we're really, really trying to build not only educators, but computer science educators with this program. And so Joe, you can go on. And so what we do with this program, we offer a 45-hour course at LaGuardia Community College. LaGuardia Community College is in Long Island City, which is in Queens, directly across the East River, if you're not familiar with the layout of New York City. But we offer that 45-hour course for CUNY students, as well as referrals from community-based organizations throughout New York City who want to participate in this course. So kind of a blend of those two. And then everyone who participates in our program gets a work placement to teach computer science in after school. And we've even had the opportunities where some of our participants have had the opportunity to be paras during the school day and then shift over to do the after school during the evening hours, which has been a really, really welcome experience for us. But then, of course, one piece that we always find missing with any piece of sustainability for a computer science program and after school is we need to provide the support to the community-based organization as to what it takes and what it means to run computer science and have computer science at your program and at your site. And so we offer as well training and professional development to the admin staff for our community-based organizations to make sure that we can, once this program is over and they've gotten this training, then sustain this program and so that we don't lose them doing computer science and after school. And so, Joe, we can go on. So for our computer science course, I lead all of the CS facilitation piece at LaGuardia Community College, which has been a really, really welcoming experience and wonderful experience for me. But we have 23 hours of our 45 that is in computer science education or computer science instruction. We train specifically on the creative computing curriculum in that it utilizes Scratch. It's an area that has very low barriers to entry. we try to highlight computational thinking as being the basis for this. And so it's more than just going through, looking at the curriculum and then performing an activity with the students, but we're trying to get them to understand computational thinking as a problem-solving process, and how we can apply that to our other disciplines that we're doing in the formal day as well as in after school. We also try to blend in a little bit of STEM plus C for this, which makes it a really, really wonderful opportunity as well. So we have 23 hours of computer science instruction, and Joe, we can go to the next. We have 16 hours of what we call foundations of education. We work directly with LaGuardia faculty to facilitate this section of the course. One of the highlights of this is we try to really, really build in culturally responsive education for computer science, which has been a really, really welcome piece for our participants as well. And then everything else is kind of blended into that typical Ed 101 that you would get in that youth development. All right, Joe, we can go on. And then we also want to prepare our educators to enter into the workforce. And so we have 6 hours of what we call professionalism. And so we do things like career readiness, team building, interview prep, resume writing, as well as offer access to alt-cert programs in New York City to get them on their pathway of becoming New York City public teachers if they don't have that ed degree coming in. All right, Joe, we can go on. And then, of course, we also offer our 16 hours of professional development to our CBO partners to make sure that we can sustain those computer science programs once we have moved on. And so we talk about supporting a digital learning staff, what that means, because we have unique requirements for that. And as we know, tech management, what it means to actually manage a tech cart or a tech computers and machines at your program as well, just to really, really help build them up so that they can support this entire program beyond our involvement. And Joe, we can go on. And so for the work placements, one thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to boost up the hourly wage of our after-school educators. And so we, for all of our participating programs, we ask that they pay a minimum of $16 to $18 an hour, which surprisingly hasn't been a problem for our after-school sites. We'll see what happens in FY21 after COVID here. But all of our participants are earning money during this experience as well. They get paid for the training as well as getting their job placement. And then in return, they offer computer science for their hired programs, a minimum of 2 hours a week, and they go through a 12-week curriculum with their students. That allows them to be able to repeat that curriculum with a new set of students after their initial group. And Joe, we can move on. So some challenges that we have that we planned for and that we encountered. One was attrition. We had a ton of attrition with our educators in our first iteration of this program, and then so we were able to put in some changes in order to address that. Putting in STEM programming, making sure that we can blend STEM and computer science as being something that our CBO partners really, really wanted, as well as our other funders wanted to make sure that we can have just high quality STEM programming and not divorce computer science from STEM, but find a way to kind of blend those two together. And then just being able to schedule everything, scheduling with our participants in the program. They are community college students who have a full course load and have a family life, and then we're asking them to do this job as well. And so being able to kind of blend that all together was a main challenge that we did face, and we had to kind of work through for our commitment here. And then Joe, we can go on really quickly here. Just some successes that I just want to highlight with this program. The one big one is teaching efficacy. With our participants, you can see at the start of the program, they didn't think that they were going to be great teachers, but then towards the end, we were able to really, really build that up. And so not only did they have the confidence and competencies to teach computer science, but they had the confidence and competencies to stand in front of students and be able to deliver deliver that content knowledge with confidence. As well as being a certified teacher. You know, we have to have good quality educators in New York City public schools. And so we were able to kind of persuade some of them to go on these alt-cert paths to actually become certified teachers in New York City public schools. And then with the want of teaching computer science, which has been a really, really exciting piece of this and a meaningful piece of this program as well. And Joe, we can go on. And I think, perfect. Yeah, I got the warning that I had 2 minutes, and so I kind of sped through that a little bit there. But happy to answer any questions during this time, as well as after. You can connect with me, and I can fill you in a little bit more as well.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Now we'll open up for any questions from the audience.
if there's no other questions, I have one. Really great program. I'm really excited to hear how you're using community college students to actually build out the infrastructure for after school, because I think that's really the problem. A lot of times when I've done it, I've done like with undergraduate students that are about to graduate, and it's hard to keep traction, but being able to train them and give them that skill, no matter where they go, they can, you know, continue to offer those programs even when your funding runs out. So I think that's great infrastructure.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a question. Yeah, Steve, how do you recruit? What are the best methods for recruiting teachers? How do you approach a teacher, say, hey, we got this after school thing we'd like you to do? How do you do that, or what are some experiences you've learned?
So for the recruitment piece for CUNY, you know, we kind of rely on them to broadcast what this program actually is. And so what's curious about it is we've run this at Hostos Community College as well as at LaGuardia Community College historically. And but we actually get participants from Hunter. We get participants from Brooklyn College, which are a couple of 4 years in the city as well. And so we've been able to get those students to actually come over to LaGuardia and take this course as a piece of their education. And they've been computer science students as well as people who are on an ed track. And so that's been a welcome surprise. As far as teachers from the DOE, we rely on some of our other initiatives that we run to make those connections. We have what we call mentor teachers throughout New York City, and our mentor teachers, who are formal educators, they're the ones who kind of spearhead recruiting other teachers from the schools to make sure that we can get that piece. But that mentorship piece of this as well has just been really, really valuable in working not only with other teachers. They're able to kind of bounce ideas off of each other, but to have a formal teacher work with an informal teacher and kind of understand the differences and the nuances of the two forms of education has been really, really valuable as well. So we rely on our other programs and our previous connections in order to recruit DOE teachers, and then we rely on the CUNY system to recruit students into the course.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hi, this is Dr. Barnett. I'm sorry, I have a question. I don't know if I missed this or not, but do your professional development for teachers, is that connected with the Department of Education of offering like, you know, any credit for that? Formal?
So typically the teachers who participate, they do not get CTE credits for this. Our participants at LaGuardia, what they get non-degree seeking credits as a part of this. So they're able to apply that to whatever discipline they decide to go in. If they go into a 4-year with CUNY, they will count for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thanks everyone. Moving to our next commitment highlight, we have with us Christina Gardner-McCune from AI for K-12.
Okay, nice to be here. Thank you. Next slide, please, Joe. So I'm the co-chair of AI for K-12 initiative, and our goal is to spark AI curiosity. Next slide. We were a 2019 commitment maker, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of origin about where AI for K-12 initiative came from, just to help you understand more of what our goal and our mission is. If we think back to about 2 years ago, in May 2018, CS education, and it was and still is really exploding here in the US and abroad. And many countries were beginning to start thinking about doing K-12 AI education, such as China, UK, and some EU countries. But the US really wasn't that far along. We really hadn't started thinking about it. And if you look here, there's the two CSTA guidelines that were currently available at that time for AI, and they were really in the upper grade bands. And so my colleague, Dr. Dave Turetsky at CMU, was really interested in trying to create guidelines for, next slide, for K-12 students. So in May 2018, we launched the AI for K-12 initiative as a joint partnership between the AAAI Association for Advancement of Artificial Intelligence, research community, and CSTA, the Computer Science Teachers Association, to really help catalyze creating these guidelines with the right levels of expertise. We started off just being funded by Carnegie Mellon School of Computing, and then we were able to pick up an iTest grant from NSF. Next slide. So what is the mission of AI for K-12? Well, we have three primary goals. One is to develop national guidelines for teaching AI in K-12. They're modeled after the CSTA standards for computing education, and we span 4 grade bands, 2 in elementary school, middle, and high school. And we're really focused on what students should know and what students should be able to do with AI. Our second and third goal are around creating a resource directory and also creating a community around this work. Next slide, please. Here's just our steering committee, Dave Caretzi at CMU, myself, and Deborah Seahorn. Deborah Seahorn is actually creator of, co-chair of the 2 CSTA standards committees that were created to create the current CSTA standards that we have. So she's really bringing that wealth of knowledge to the plate to help us really do this commitment. Next slide. Our next, and a large part of our workforce, and actually Marlowe's one, Marlo Barnett is one of our working group members in our 3-5 grade band, is really formed out of primarily K-12 teachers. We have 16 that are working with us, our advisory board mix, and so it's a mixture of AI experts, K-12 educators, researchers, industry, government, and curriculum and PD providers. So we have a really good mix of people that are coming in to help us create these guidelines. We really look for people who are national and local leaders in their areas to help catalyze this work, and also to help us understand what are the needs that, across, from an equity perspective, as well as across public and private institutions and geographically across the US. What would it take to get these guidelines adopted? Next slide. So our commitment in 2019 was to develop national guidelines for teaching AI in K-12 classrooms by summer 2020 to benefit students, teachers, curriculum developers, and AI tool designers. And so I wanted to tell you more about how far, where we've been in the past year with this commitment. Next slide. So we started off with first designing the 5 big ideas in AI, and you can see here at the center of it is societal impacts of AI, and we really wanted students to really understand that AI has both positive and negative impacts, and really wanted them to be able to talk about those intelligently. And so if you look around this big idea wheel, you see the other 4 big ideas. And so their ability to talk about these things and understand and weigh the pros and cons and the impacts of these really starts with them understanding how the underlying AI technologies work. And that's what the other 4 big ideas are: perception, representation, and reasoning, learning, which is synonymous with machine learning, and natural interactions, those technologies that we use and we interact with, and the knowledge that they're built on. Next slide. So our goal in creating these guidelines is to make AI accessible to K-12 students. We want to make it transparent to help them see what's going on. When you look inside the box of AI, we want them to really understand that it's not magic. We want them to be able to develop mental models of what's happening under the hood about AI applications. And we want to encourage them to not just be consumers, but to be creators of AI applications and technologies. Because when they create those technologies, they begin to grapple with the issues of, am I picking the right sample set here? What happens, am I being diverse enough? What happens if someone uses my tool that I didn't think about? What impacts would it have on them? And be able to have those conversations and think about those things and feel like they can be creators and not just consumers. Next slide. The other big thing that we're hoping these guidelines will provide opportunities with are for students to experiment with AI agents to investigate their behavior, to be able to do hand simulations of AI algorithms, or engage in different unplugged activities that help them bring AI to life even without a computer. So actually conceptual knowledge all the way up to more proficiency within programming. We want them to be able to build their own AI applications. Kids can start doing this as early as elementary school. There's lots of tools that are now out there. App Inventor and Scratch have now, there's now variants of those that actually include AI APIs for them to build, sentiment analysis or, face recognition programs, or in different things in that way. And so we also want them to explore case studies of AI-related societal issues from multiple perspectives so that they understand how AI works, the limitations of AI, and begin to think of AI as a system and all the different parts, the human parts, the mechanical parts, and the intelligent agent parts of these systems to understand, where, possible sources of AI bias and what are other societal impacts these systems can have. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to do, I don't have time to give you all of the big ideas, but I wanted to just kind of dive into one of them because we're getting ready to release this really soon, is the first big idea, which is on perception, which is computers perceive the world using sensors. And so each big idea is broken down into concepts. So this one is broken down into 3 concepts: sensing, processing, and domain knowledge. And so big idea 1 really introduces students to, really meet students kind of where they are, right? They're learning about AI through, the Instagram or TikTok or all the different apps that they're using, the filters, the Siris or the Alexas that they interact with. So helping them understand what is the difference between humans and computers is a core part of this big idea, as well as helping them understand, human senses and what their, AI complements are. As well as helping them understand what is like the language, what is the pipeline of how, a computer or smartphone goes from a picture of us to understanding that this is a face, and understanding the words and, transferring our speech into text. How is it doing that and being able to interpret that? And so being able to unpack that, that pipeline for them is one of the major goals of this big idea. Next slide. So here's just some examples of some of the things that we're hoping students will know and be able to do at the K2 level. We're hoping that they'll be able to identify sensors on robots and AI applications and be able to interact intelligently with Siri and Alexa. And they're already doing these things. So we really see K2 as an opportunity for students to learn the skills that they need to be able to understand higher level AI concepts in the future. So we're really trying to connect into what they're already doing in the classroom, because K2's teachers don't have a lot of time to have a dedicated class in AI. So they're going to be linking this to stuff that they're already learning about, like social emotional skills and senses and that kind of thing. By the time we get to 3-5, we're hoping that they'll be able to, demonstrate some of the limitations of perception, because they're actually interacting with some of these technologies and they're building their own applications using Scratch plugins or Calypso or any of these other tools. And by 6-8, we're actually hoping that they'll be able to look at maybe even what are the types of perceptions that are being used in 6-8, and 9-12 thinking about the domain knowledge that is required for a computer to be able to, sense a face or recognize different things. Next slide. So this is an example. We're getting ready to release our big idea 1 progression chart. So for each big idea, around each one of those concepts, we may have several guidelines for each concept. And so here we're looking at big idea 1, and this is the processing concept. And here's 2 of the guidelines rows in that progression chart. For each guideline, we have a learning objective, an enduring understanding, and an unpacking to help explain what this is. So for this one, it's about helping students understand the difference between sensing and perception. So on the K2 level, what we're thinking is we want students to be able to give examples of intelligent versus non-intelligent machines and discuss what makes a machine intelligent. And that's building on this knowledge that, many machines use sensors, but those sensors don't make them intelligent, right? There's some AI going on beyond them. So next slide. So we'll be releasing this by Monday as the full progression, and we'd love to hear your feedback on it. We'll have that open for about 2 weeks. And so if you're interested in giving us feedback, please follow us on Twitter, because we'll release that there. We'll also release it on our mailing list, and I'll have a link to our mailing list on the next slide, on the last slide.
Sorry, slide. Christina, due to the time limit, we need to wrap up now.
Okay, sure. And so this is just a quick kind of, we're going to be releasing throughout the month of June and July, the rest of the big idea progression charts for feedback. And also, next slide. We'll be releasing this. We have 3 presentations at CSTA, 2 workshops, and 1 BOF. Next slide. I'm trying to get to the last slide. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, we have big idea posters in different language. We have this community is really growing. And so we'll be releasing our Spanish translation on Monday. Keep going. I'm trying to get to the last slide in my deck. It just has our contact information. Yep, there we are. So join us in sparking AI curiosity at aifork12.org. There's a link to our mailing list. And like I said, you can follow us on Twitter, because we're trying to push out a lot of the details about what we're working on as we're releasing them. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the great presentation. Due to the time limit, we are moving on to our next speaker, Jeremy Woodward from VHS Learning. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop in the chat. We will definitely follow up with you after the call.
Hey, Sri, ready? Can you hear me okay? Okay. Hi, yeah, I'm Jeremy Woodward, Computer Science Curriculum Coordinator for VHS Learning. Christina said something that struck me in my teaching career. You know, I watched the student sitting for hours playing Flappy Bird on his iPhone. You know, and it brought up the thought of like, how do we convert our kids who are just experts in consume, to turn them into content creators? Like, hey, would you like to know how Flappy Bird was made? You know, and that's such an ongoing thing for every person that teaches computer science, I think. So that's pretty pretty important. It spoke a lot to me. VHS Learning, we are a online provider. We're a nonprofit online provider for everything from history, algebra, English classes. But my world focuses on the computer science department at VHS. I've taught since 1995 in face-to-face classrooms. And then I have 7 years programming experience for banks like Wells Fargo and the U.S. Postal Service and oil refineries and power companies. But my main love is the classroom. And it's pretty exciting nowadays with everything that's going on. Next slide. So VHS Learning offers 23 AP courses. We have tons of STEM offerings. We have custom sections. We have so many schools all over the world. We do a lot to accommodate different schedules, and especially in this time of COVID, we've done that a lot with schools grappling with the global pandemic. We offer summer school, middle school, and credit recovery. Next slide, please. So, Sri, just click a few more times on that slide. There's just animations on there. There we go. There's a lot of online providers of that are out there. All our courses are facilitated by real qualified teachers, and 81% of our teachers hold a master's degree or higher in their subject matter. Every teacher that we hire, whether they're a member teacher or a contract teacher, have to go through a 4-week graduate level course in online teaching methodologies, which is really interesting, as all these teachers have just gotten thrust into teaching online. It's kind of interesting the stories we hear at VHS Learning about, wow, it takes a lot to be successful in an online environment, and there's limitations to it too, and as a lot of parents and teachers have found out. You know, our school, our students are engaged and a part of a classroom learning community. We have weekly discussion forums. We really try to put the human element in our courses. Every VHS student has a personal discussion thread to communicate with their teacher. Teachers have to respond within 24 hours. We have tech support 24/7. We have hands-on labs, interactive online simulations for programming. I try to make our courses something that my 13-year-old son would be interested in. So next slide, please. So one of the things is we have partnerships that we love to establish. We're always looking for new partners. to work with, to customize. I think our latest partner was NIMSI, the National Math and Science Initiative, based out of Dallas, Texas. We've done many commitments for CS4All to get computer science into underserved communities. Next slide, please. Yeah, again, I mentioned the online teaching methodologies class. So we don't just throw our teachers, right onto a website and have them navigate, virtual learning environment systems. We have lots of feedback with our teachers. We evaluate them and support them and give them extra help if they need so. The OTM is free of charge if we hire the teacher for a course. So if you wanted to take the OTM course separately, it may not be free, but if we hire you, it's completely free. Next slide, please. So these are some of the classes that we offer: APCSA, APCS Principles. The new one this year, as far as our commitment, is the cybersecurity course. It's a semester-long course that focuses on the Linux operating system, cyber law, personal digital footprint, so to speak, safe practices, from the personal to the how do you run the cybersecurity policies at a large company. We do a video game design course using the Unity platform, which they were present at the Salt Lake City CS4All Summit. And Unity is awesome. Just absolutely love the people that work there. Go to the next slide, please. So our past commitments, we're creating a computing certificate program, so we teach APCS principles, but we also created a course that is more accessible for students, like just part of the course before they go to the full course. Of course, this year we did a 15-week online cybersecurity course we piloted with 2 teachers, and the demand for cybersecurity is phenomenal nowadays. And then we're continuing to offer APCS principles to rural districts, at least 2 new states, and one state was North Dakota, and another one we're working on is New Mexico.
Sorry, Jeremy, we would need to wrap up now.
Okay, so just flip through the next few slides. Cybersecurity, APCSA, APCS principles. This last slide, we're always looking for partners to introduce any of our computer science curriculums into underserved areas. So please contact me if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeremy, Christina, and everyone else who shared the amazing work that you're doing. And these are just some of a few of the examples of ways that companies are really pivoting to support CSED through amidst COVID. So as Sri mentioned earlier, we have 1 minute left, so we don't have time for questions. But if you do have questions, you can email summit@csforall.org, and we will respond to your questions. We'll also forward them to the appropriate person as needed. And Sri will be following up with a link to the slides and the recording, and perhaps she'll pipe some of the questions and answers within the response as well. Thank you so much, all of you. I'm sorry we have to stop promptly at 1, but I know we all have other meetings that we have to attend, but thank you. And we look forward to seeing the wonderful commitments that you guys make in 2020. As always, you can join us to become a member, CSforALL.org. If you're not, it's free. Visit our member portal. You'll see we have over 600 member organizations. It's a great way to connect with the community, learn what's happening in the community, get valuable resources, create really great partnerships, and then use us as a platform to really lift up and share the work that you're doing, not only online, but through multiple webinars that we host monthly. We have community calls, we have a newsletter, we have a number of number of ways that we distribute information to the community. Also, you can join our Slack channel, sign up for our next webinar. And sign up for a newsletter. It's really, I think if nothing else, I invite you to sign up for a newsletter, because that's where you really get to learn about what's happening with the broader CS community. We spotlight our members, we share opportunities, information, insights about things that are happening not only within your local region, but across the country. And of course, follow us on social media, and we look forward to seeing and chatting with you soon. One thing before I go, we got one question as to whether or not you need to attend the summit to make a commitment. Absolutely not. Anyone can make a commitment. You don't need to attend the summit. You just need to go online. It's free. It takes maybe about 20 minutes and a little bit of thought to go on there, sign up, and make a commitment. So I invite you all to do so today. Thank you, and have a great day and a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.